and you'll get the videos and the material within 2 to 3 days once the session is ended. Over to you, Dr. Sana.
Thank you, Gohar. And Altaf, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just looking for the PowerPoint that I used last year. By the way, I have another one for this. I just made one which I wanted to add to this one. So because it's somewhere in the what we call, okay, just we don't need to bother too much about that because I have some material for us for today.
If you close the PowerPoint that you're looking for and then open it when just now after the session has started, you'll see it on your screen. Sometimes you don't see it if it has been open for a long time.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Roxana. I think I have another one, and we'll use that, which I was just reading last night. So I just thought that there is some new development. And if you could, Gaur, if you could just bring in the one that you brought in earlier. So we'll just start with that, and then I'll go for the part. So
is this
that's the one. Thank you. This would work perfectly. So you need to help me to just bring it up a bit, like just move it. Yeah, the first one. Then you can go down to the circle where we are. So So I was discussing recently with a few friends in different countries, and especially an American friend of mine, and we were talking about the way we do research and the way we approach what we call the knowledge production process. And there are many people who are not satisfied with the method, the way we do research, the way we approach knowledge creation. And so firstly, I thought that it's a very niche area where some people complain about the way they work, and they say, okay, let's leave the method alone and let's do our own thing. But then a friend sent me this, and he said, it's very important for graduate, postgraduate students. I think most of you might be those, or professors, I don't know. But it's very important that we go back to the beginning and we talk about how do we do our PhD, like how do we do our research. And this is one example, that imagine a circle that contains all of human knowledge. So we don't know anything about it. And then, Gaur, can you help me with this? Move to the next one. Yeah, this one. And by the time you finish elementary school, you know a little, like this blue spot is there. And then next one. So by the time you finish high school, you know a bit more, like you have a bit more of knowledge. And then a bachelor's degree, you see the orange dot and it's pointing towards a direction. And the next one. And then when you have a master's degree, and it deepens your specialty. So you are just trying to reach to the limits. And then reading research papers takes you to the edge of human knowledge, like the circle. If we take the circle as the whole of human knowledge that we have right now, and then you say, okay, once you are at the boundary, you focus on moving out. And that's what graduate research or postgraduate research is all about. And you push at the boundary for a few years, like you do your research, you develop your research questions, and you think about how to solve them, and then you gather data and you do everything that you could, and until one day the boundary gives way. That's where your PhD dissertation comes to its fruition. Like that's where you get a degree, like you really make a dent in the knowledge structure. The next one, and that's your PhD. And of course, the work, as it says, different to you. So the bigger picture is that whenever you are doing a study, you are looking for something novel. And the last word is that you keep pushing. I just wanted to show this that most of the time research is considered to be a continuous process where we reproduce what has earlier been reproduced. Like that's not the spirit of research. So I just wanted to take a few moments and talk about that. Yes, that's it. That's it. Nothing more. Go on. So I'll speak for a few minutes about qualitative research, and then Gaur will help me with another slideshow, and then I have the one that I have. Mixed method research somewhere became popular in the 80s. Like it's not that mixed method research is not new, because qualitative research in some way is going on since eternity. Like since we were writing a book is qualitative. Like you give your impressions and you see this is how I see the world, and people say, okay, this is something new. And it's some people are really good at reading, some people are really good at observation, and some people are really good at action. So they do a lot of stuff, and then they write about it, like personal experiences. Like many of the books that become popular are ex-bureaucrats, military officials, diplomats, and all these people, because they have first-hand experience. They have never got into the knowledge production business the way we do, but their personal experiences are valuable, so people read them. And also people in power, people, poets, philosophers, whoever. And that's mostly their own. Some people write of their inner volition, like poets, novelists, and everybody. Researchers are a different kind, but still the aim is the same. Like we add to the human body of knowledge. This is something that I would like to discuss a bit later, is that, but the difference between, or I won't say ordinary, but commonplace writing and research is that you become an intentional knowledge producer, that you know a process and you follow that process. But again, the problem is that most of the time when we set processes, we set kind of boundaries for ourselves out of which we don't want to go. Like we would like to find a method, and we will go for a survey or whatever, and then we'll find findings, and then we'll see if these findings are the same like the other ones, and then we are happy with that. So mixed method research, I remember my professor telling me in the year 2000 that, do you know empirical and what we call and theoretical research? And I said, yes, I know. So he said that your work is mostly theoretical, which will involve qualitative research, but just add a bit of quantitative to it. And I said, oh, why is that? And he said, because one, the theme that you are trying to study, there is no prior research in Pakistan. So we need a profile for it. So general profile of how journalists work and things, since I have studied journalism. And he said, since you are looking at their self-conceptions, and that's an emotional side of their personalities, and it involves a lot of personal feelings. So the study will remain qualitative. And I said, okay, so I did that. And that's the bigger question when you are into the mixed method research. What do you want to study? And why would you like to mix both? Since I won't go into the details of qualitative, quantitative research, because it's something that everybody knows. Even at undergrad level, we know that how it is. Mixing it is a question, because one of the most important questions is which method helps most, like which is the central one and which is the one who is there to help. Like, for example, if you are going into a study of people's feeling about something, your focus would be qualitative. But then again, you need a general picture of everything. Then you need a quantitative one that helps it. But if you are going for a social question, like awareness about human rights, for example, It's a tricky one when you talk about human rights, because and you don't want to get into much trouble, and you want to know how people feel like. So your main question would be quantitative, in my personal opinion. And then you say, okay, we are focusing on 4 districts in Punjab, for example. Like, for example, if we say we would like to go into center and periphery, so you take Lahore or Faisalabad, any other city, or Rawalpindi, that's the center. The periphery, you can go into the uh, rural areas and select those, and you create a profile. Here it is, and then you would like to know whether uh, whether there is a general tendency towards one or another area. So then you will get into qualitative research, and you will go into in-depth interviews or whatever method you would like to go into. So that's basically the mix. And there are a few technical terms that we use for those. Gaur, could you just put the second one? Because these are, I think it's easier if we,
Give me a second, sir.
yeah, he said, no problem, no problem. There's no rush. We can do that. Yeah. So these are the 4 main ways of we can say 4 or 6, but they are basically 4. This is sequential explanatory design and sequential exploratory design. The explanatory is used for where the quantitative part is the first one, and exploratory is used for where the qualitative one is the one that informs. Sequential is when both are used, and concurrent triangulation is. These are the 4 that can you go forward, then we can see the illustrations. Yeah, the first one. Yeah. So sequential explanatory design is where quantitative data and analysis informs the other process, which is in the sequence. Like you gather quantitative data and analysis, and then you gather qualitative data and analysis, and then you go into final interpretation. What happens is that you gather quantitative data, and through that you develop a profile, and in the light of that profile, you fashion your qualitative research. This is the most common one basically used. Most of the time, it's also good when you are using kind of theories that are grounded theory or something like that, where you want to learn the basic questions, the in-depth questions in the field. So it's really helpful. If you have a predetermined qualitative structure, that's for the next one. Can you move to the next one? The sequential exploratory design, where qualitative data analysis comes first. Like you get into interviews and you get into in-depth interviews or focus group discussions, participant observation. I'm sure that we don't need to get into the detail of what these are, because I'm sure you know that. And you say, okay, here it is. I go into the way people think about these, and then I design a survey through which I would like to understand how many people feel like how. So then you get into the final interpretations. You say, but here the opinions are known first. Like you enter the field, know the emotional side of your theme, and then you say, okay, here is how people feel about certain issues. And now I want to have a larger picture, and you design a survey. One more thing, that quantitative research is never without an aspect of qualitative research, because there is always, you all know that when you design your surveys, you either have open-ended questions, or you use those Likert scales, what we call opinion statements. And when you get those opinion statements, you are in fact into qualitative already. Most of the time, when your first approach is to qualitative data analysis, and you go in and you look into the emotional sides of things, or whatever people are feeling, or whatever their opinions are. So you gather data, and then you see which are the most important opinion issues. and you have a questionnaire, and then you put in what we call opinion statements. You use a Likert scale. We all know that it's always preferable to have a 5-point scale than a 3-point, because a 5-point scale gives you the flexibility of the middle value. But you know, you have done qualitative, but yet when you are looking for a quantitative aspect of it, you again include those opinion statements or whatever we call it. Even an open-ended question means that you are going qualitative somehow. The next one, please. Like sequential transformative design. It somehow, qualitative data analysis, quantitative data analysis and interpretation, and then quantitative data analysis, qualitative data analysis, and interpretation. So the first one takes place, then you go for the second one. So you do it twice. You do the same process twice. You just change the order, and you get some results. It's difficult, I must say, because when you connect it to the theory, it becomes a bit difficult. But it's still, it depends upon the problem at hand. Like, it's always, we make decisions according to our research questions, according to our theoretical structures and what we call a methodology, and we go from there. So in some cases, you need those, both of them working one after another. So you can even reverse this. You can do the quantitative first and the qualitative second. The last one, it's one phase project, and it's difficult. I don't think that a single person could do that. At times it's more useful when more than one researcher is doing the job, because you are doing qualitative and quantitative data analysis at the same time, and you get the result at the same time, and then you put them in front of each other, juxtapose them, and then you get some results. It's difficult. It's difficult in the sense that if one person going into both areas within the same time frame is not easy to accomplish, but it still works. Like, again, it depends upon the problem at hand. Gaur, you can take this one down, and I'll bring another one. So I'm sorry. I hope that I'm not, oh, God, no. Wait, I have to put it up. Here it is. Is it up?
No, you have to say share screen.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, here it is. Share screen. Why isn't it showing? Wait a moment.
So you are learning about Zoom as well, right?
Yeah, no, I'm learning about Zoom also, but I'm also learning about technology, which is not my, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. It's you need
no,
a lot
you
of
are good at it, but
effort
for me,
with technology.
Yeah. Okay, so here is share screen. Why isn't it showing on my?
If you email it to Gohar right now, we will put it up, I think.
Yeah, I'll do that. I thought that I would be able to do at least this.
This portion. Altaf, we'll get you a technology session going soon.
Yeah, I'm sure. I really need that. I'm sure about that. So, I'm just forwarding it to you. Sorry for all the inconveniences, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But
that's if there are, while we do that, if there are any questions, we are happy to take them. Yeah, I don't see any questions in chat.
Yeah.
But there was one question which I think you can respond to, and I think it's very obvious. But it says, can you do this research for natural sciences? Is it related to? How do you relate it to natural sciences? And if you could respond to that.
Yeah, it's really a very important question to me. I'm always, since I do a lot of qualitative research, and I use basically quantitative research for the sake of getting a profile or getting find some validity. Basically, quantitative research is influenced by natural sciences. And at times it becomes very difficult to use it in social sciences and especially in humanities. Like since social natural sciences research gives you exact answers, we all know that because it's not about either if, like there is 100% assurance, like in a sense, like even if an experiment fails, there is something that, yeah, that's something that that's also an answer. In social sciences, humanities, that's not the case. You are never 100% sure. Every result is an approximation. So yes, it is. I think if one of the main areas of knowledge production is to make knowledge humane. And I think if qualitative aspects of research are introduced into natural sciences, we'll be knowing a lot more about what human beings want, because we are serving the same purpose. On the one hand, if humanities is trying to write the emotional story of humanity, natural sciences are always trying to make the human life easier by technology, by innovation, and by by giving people, making people lives easier. So I think what we struggle in natural social sciences and humanities is to make quantitative research less matter of fact. Like that's why we mix methods. But in natural sciences, I think if qualitative research, I don't know whether qualitative research happens in natural sciences or not, but I think it would be really helpful by approaching people, especially like when things happen, like COVID, for example. COVID has given us a greater understanding into our professional behaviors, because scientists were supposed to explain the human side. And so the human side was not that they are not serving humanity, but the emotional values of things were not their job to do. And I have seen WHO, World Health Organization, people struggling to explain why was it possible to survive once you have COVID yesterday, and why isn't it today? Because they were just stating facts after getting research, and it was an ongoing research. It's still an ongoing research. So I think it's quite useful for natural sciences.
May I add some examples to that? I think you stated it very beautifully, Altaf, that wherever there's a human element, be it natural sciences or economics or anything, economics is actually falls in the social sciences. There's a lot of data that you need to apply to the effects on human beings. And like you said, COVID had alerted us to the well-being part of the human being, which was previously not as obvious. And I know that lots of quantitative, allegedly quantitative fields are now looking at qualitative mixed methods research to actually bring the two together to make the results more palatable for the humankind. And I think that's the tendency now to happen, that even in sciences, they're looking at perhaps looking at the social cultural context of a certain invention. How does a certain scientific invention impact? And that will deal with human beings, and that's where the qualitative part will come in. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I always take the opportunity to state the heuristic question. And I think this is, Dr. Rufsana, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I didn't say that earlier. I always say that because this is the only time of the year that I'm able to talk about research. Like I do research, but speaking about research is this opportunity. And I always try to like share the way I try to make sense of things myself, like because I think that's important. Like whatever research we do, like whether we do a mixed one or a qualitative or a quantitative one or whatever, there are heuristic goals that we follow. And there is this wonderful book on research methods. I think I have shared it with you, or I'll share it with you if I didn't. And there is this introduction to this book written by the author, which is being shared in many American universities separately. Like students of research, like graduate students are offered this introduction. Even if you don't read the book, you are offered this, to give an understanding to students what research is and what are the aims that we follow, irrespective of whether it's qualitative, whether it's quantitative, or whether it's mixed. And I think it's important that we discuss. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So can we move to the first slide? Okay. So the first and foremost question is that most of the time when I have seen this from, like, the first time we began with an MPhil and PhD program at the University of Peshawar was in 2010. Yeah, we established this department, MPhil and PhD program, and I started advising students. And I saw one of the biggest worries for students was whether they would be able to find the results. What would the study bring? And that's difficult to understand. Like, it's really difficult to decide on the very first day whether your project will bring you results, because you don't know. You really don't know. It's not possible to worry about results in the very beginning and get something done. Like, it creates anxiety, and it's really difficult. It might affect your mental well-being, and it might affect the whole process, or at least it would not allow you to be up to your potential. So let's get rid of that first and foremost and say it's the process of discovery. Like, you are trying to find something, and that's the point where you move from that, and that's the point where you first and foremost see that you are going to find something. And I'll share the introduction with you and also the book, and it shows that sometimes we in our effort to find specific answers to specific questions, we let go the more important. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the definition in heuristics. Like, we try to find questions that are not easy, but that are really manageable, and then we try to find answer to that. And we just try to avoid the bigger questions like justice, freedom, humanity, or we think it's abstract. And it's really interesting that this philosopher Hannah Arendt was worried about why there were Jewish people who were persecuted during the Holocaust, and she thought that it's the question of justice, and she just tried to find methods to answer those questions. So most of the time, these are larger questions which are discussed within the smaller structures. So if you are going for predictable questions and you want to have predictable answers, you won't reach there. So let's see on the very onset to get rid of anxiety. The next one. Yeah. So the process of discovery. The first, don't find an answerable question, because that's not what you have to do. That's not research. Find a researchable question that could be that there is enough need to do research, and there are enough ways to do it, and then find a method to find answer to the researchable question. And that's where the question whether you are going for a quantitative, qualitative, or a mixed research method somehow begins. Like, it's not finalized, but it begins. Like, you say, what would I like to, what is the question? For example, the question is that, like, if I am asked to do research today, I would like to see how is the current spike price hike affecting people who are daily wagers. And that's a valid question. And I say, how much do they earn? How much are their possibilities that they would be able to get more jobs and things like that. So here I can go for mixed. I can go for a survey where I would like to have all these questions answered, and I can also go deeper and see how they are emotionally affected by it, and how their lives are being affected, and what are the problems that they are facing. And then become the systematic gathering of data and recording each step of the way. I have seen it, and I'm sure that none of you would be doing that, but I've seen it that most of the time we don't record each and every step of what we do. And it becomes more important when you are into a mixed method of research, because especially if you are doing it concurrently, like at the same time you're getting into qualitative and quantitative data. So most of the time I have seen people not recording the full qualitative steps. Most of the time it happens like, how did you reach a place where you were supposed to do participant observation? You don't write about it. You say, I went to the bazaar. How did you reach there? And at the end, you don't remember it. And when you start writing, you don't. So just noting down every question is important. The next one, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. And that's the most important one, that developing a mindset for inquiry, that's important. Like savvy and discriminating research consumption. Like you should know that you are going a different path. You know what you are doing. Like I have seen many people arguing, and again I'll say that I'm sure none of you are amongst those, but I have seen people who think that layman argument and research argument is sometimes the same. That's not the same, because your whole aim is to become like to make the process of inquiry your second nature, if not first. So you have to be very clear about that. And also, you have to be a very sophisticated consumer of research. And this is the term researcher practitioner comes in. Like you are a researcher, but you practice. Like you are part of the human cycle, and you do research, but you also act upon the theoretical or the methodological structures you develop. So you have to be really making good choices. Like, what are you reading? What are you? Who are you discussing your themes with? Like the habit of just consulting every supervisor on earth, whether your research questions are right, where you have one supervisor who's there to guide you. That's something that I always discourage. I said, no, don't do that. Don't do this to yourself. You are into a in-depth discussion with your supervisor. Just find your answers there, or change your supervisor if you are not comfortable with that. But just don't go with questions across the world. And asking meaningful and important questions. Sometimes we think we are asking meaningful and important questions, but sometimes we don't. Like especially in qualitative research and also in quantitative research, what do you put first and what second? Basically, if you are asking somebody, if you are asking questions about corruption in the country, which is, I'm sorry, it has become so common, and you are the first question you ask somebody, what's your income? So that will just shy them away. They'll say, okay, no, just go for the regular ones, like ask the first question first that are easy, and put the difficult one at the end. And then critical thinking skills are very important. Like these are the most important things. Like in Germany, when we were doing research, this was kind of not believing yourself, like self-doubt, like asking questions, playing the devil's advocate. That's very important when you do research. You can't be content with saying, okay, some research recently in the US did this research, and this is the questionnaire they use, or this is the method they use, and that's the final one because some big gun has done it there. No, you have to be critical of that, and also critical of your decision. And also, one thing is very interesting, that when you go into qualitative research, you have to have very good interviewing skills. Like interviewing skills are simple. Like you are there to ask questions to get a research done, but you should have done your homework about the person, about the theme, and also develop a keen interest into what yeah. True, I'll come to this. So interviewing skills are numerous, but the most important aspect is that you have a keen interest, that you know it's important. Don't throw it to people. Like don't go into that area by just finding answers to questions and coming back. And also observation skills. Observation, we always, mm, even quantitative, qualitative, both. The question of observations is important. Even if you are like many people don't do their surveys themselves. They just send them. The Google way of doing surveys is, they call it efficient, but I think it's a lazy method to do it, because you really don't know what's going on around you, and you just send them on Google Docs and people answer. In some cases it's good, but if you are really trying to understand some human situation, it becomes really difficult to get anything out of it, because quantitative research is also not simply numbers. It's more to it. The next one. Yeah, it's data doesn't speak itself. Like it can't speak for itself. You are the one who you give meaning to data, and you should be very careful when you give meaning to data. Even quantitative data, people think that quantitative data is just there. You don't need to really put a lot of effort into it, because it's just there. The facts are there. No, they are not facts. Facts are always interpretable. The saying goes that statistics never lie, but statisticians do. And that's true for everything. Like you have data. In qualitative, you all know that meaning making becomes more important in qualitative. And some people just go for certain word counts or some stuff like that. It's deeper than that. And integrating theory and practice, that's very important, because you get into a theoretical structure, like the saying that I have quoted here, the purpose of theory is to explain how the world functions. The purpose of practice is to make a difference in the world. Like you develop a theoretical structure, you should always keep in mind that whatever theory you are using is going to affect human lives. It's going to make a difference. If you don't know that, there's no use doing any research. For example, in my discipline, people use this theory, which is like, it's nauseating and now, like, what's the name? I forgot. It's it comes. It's about need, uh, uh, like need satisfaction. Like we also always go for audience satisfaction. Everybody's just doing that without knowing that it's no more valid. People just go for it. So it's always important that you choose your theory, keeping in mind that it will change the world. The world just doesn't change overnight. Like it's all these small steps that help. And here is what's not help. Like the confidence heuristic, because you say, I read a lot of data, so I'll find the truth. The representative heuristic, but there is a lot of evidence here, so fine. The availability heuristic, that's what's available. So I'm using all of these. When I do all these steps, I'll find the truth. That's not true, by the way. The next one. Yeah. So that's very important, that getting out of proverbial box. If you remember the first slide that we shared, that you are just pushing the boundaries. If you are pushing the boundaries, but you try to push the boundaries by being like stated into the matter of fact word, you won't do that. Reflective theory-based practitioners, like that's what we need, that they always reflect upon the processes, upon their own decision-making processes, and they get into what we call a systemic evaluation thinking process, that they know what they are doing, and they are doing intentionally, all that they are going through the processes intentionally. These are the same processes that you learn, but you know how you are dealing with that. And this statement that I wanted to share, while the short-term purpose of your research is to fulfill the requirements for an advanced degree, the larger and longer-term purpose is to develop a mindset of inquiry that will stay with you. That's the most important aspect of our work, basically. It's not the method, it's the mindset. You try to develop your mindset by, yeah, that's true. Engaging with the text is one way of doing it. And it's very important that we understand that when we are doing research, we are finding a question to which we are trying to find an answer through a methodology which consists of a theoretical structure and uh, a method of inquiry, an instrument. Our immediate aim is to solve an immediate human problem, which is obvious and there. But our long-term goal should be attached to something bigger, like freedom, for example, like justice, like democracy, like whatever, like even if people don't get enough to eat, it's a question of justice. Like it's not simply a question of consumption. So we should be knowing about all these. Do we have a next slide? I don't think so. No, that was it. So I'll just put the last one back, and sorry, I took more time than I intended to. I really apologize for that. So what I wanted to say, I'll just sum up in 2 minutes, that the methods of inquiry, the mixed method of inquiry is always there. Even if we are using a quantitative research method like instrument, we will see that there is something qualitative about it, like your open-ended question, your opinion statement is somehow giving it an emotional turn. The reason that we mix both is that we want to be more accurate about human situations. That's the reason we mix them. There is no other reason. And which one comes first and last is a very, it's not a subjective question. It's a question that you should decide whenever you are doing your studies. And for that very reason, you should not simply be having this small problem that you have in front of you, but a large social phenomenon that you try to address. And when you know that, then your decision of mixing and deciding which precedes what would be the right one. And I think the most important question is, how do we change the world? It's a big statement, but in our feeble capacities, I'll quote Einstein on that, all of us try to change the world. And that's very important. Don't work for a degree, you will get a degree. Or even if you don't get a degree, it won't really matter. Let me tell you, in the long run, it's just a piece of paper. But it's important that you develop a mindset for inquiry, and it stays with you. And you are critical of yourself. You are a reflective person who thinks about his or her own decisions, and who thinks about other people's decisions. So thank you very much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies for speaking for almost 45, 46 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think, thank you so much, Altaf. And you have partly answered the question by University of Lahore, Ghulam Abbas's question, Ghulam Abbas. You said different solutions for a researchable question, but how do you find the optimal solution? And part of it, Altaf, you just talked about of what is the purpose at the end of the day that you are looking at, and that will help you define your method. Can you please give a situation? And there's another one from our field. But first, we'll try to answer Ghulam Abbas's question.
Yeah, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Ghulam Abbas, because it was.
Yeah, he said different solutions come while researching, while answering researchable questions.
Yeah.
Is there a technique? I don't think there's a technique. There's that framework that you carry. Yeah. So
yes, you are right, Dr. Sana. But that's the part where I always the word methodology is misunderstood in many ways. The word methodology means that you have a theory that connects your method to your research questions. So you have a title of your study, and then you have research questions, and then those research questions give you a theory and a methodology. So a methodology is not simply a method, like it's a theory connected with an instrument that you use, which is the method. And most of the time, the optimal, as you mentioned, the optimal way of getting, like there are no final solutions, but the best solutions are possible if you do that homework right. Like you find a theory. The reason that I said uses and gratification model that we use in media studies. With the advent of social media, uses and gratification model has been just thrown out of the window. And if you take uses and gratification model and you take it as a theory and you connect it with the method, I assure you, you won't find any solutions. But a good mix of a good theory, which is rooted into human situations, or sometimes I prefer what we call develop a paradigm, like having a few theories together which answer your research question, and don't rely on one because it's a human situation. And as Herbert Blumer used to say, that always keep in mind that you have to submit to the obdurate nature of the field. When you practice, like you are a researcher practitioner and you get into the field, you will find many things that are not that useful. Don't be afraid of letting them go. Just find the right answers. Don't force any answers. But I think there are no perfect solutions in humanities and social sciences, but there are optimal solutions. And there is a good background study on which you rely when you get into the field. And then you keen observation of the field. As I said, if you just record everything that you get, every observation, then you will find something that is near to perfect, but it won't be perfect. Keep in mind that it's a process, that you end somewhere where somebody else begins, or maybe you begin in a couple of years.
Thank you, Altaf. There's another question, but before that, Gohar, would you launch the poll so that we get maximum responses before people start leaving? We would request you all to please quickly respond to this poll so we may move on to another question that we have from Zunaira. We'll respond to that. We'll give you at least a minute to fill this up. It takes just a click. When we are done with it, we'll move on after a minute to that. Is that okay, Altaf?
Yeah, sure. That's good. Yeah. That's good. This is really a good practice. One knows one must. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and we will share the results with all of you so that can you see it on your screen, Altaf?
Yeah, I can see it, and it reminds me of Germany. Like feedback was always direct, in your face.
We are not very polite and courteous.
No, but we are very polite. These are very polite answers.
So, but what has happened, what I have noticed, and I don't know why, in all our sessions, the total number of participants usually are far more than the one who respond. And the ones who don't respond are the ones that are really important in my view, because then we do not get the whole picture. And if I had an option, I would probably know who have responded and those who have not responded, and actually go to them and find out what was the reason for not responding to the survey. We are nearly 1.5 minutes. We can end the poll, Gohar. And only 63 of you have responded out of 90, which is still not a bad percentage. That's 71%. We'll end the poll. We'll share the results with you. If you can see, I can show the results to you. And there are the final results of 66 of the 89 who were present at the time. There's a very interesting comment by Zunaira. She sees that and I think this is a typical dilemma for many who in natural sciences and perhaps in econometrics who do not think qualitative methods or mixed method research is any method. And she says, I was nonplussed and I didn't know what was an appropriate answer. Zunaira, the appropriate answer is all research books, theoretical books that are taught in schools carry mixed method research and qualitative research as a very strong component of research. And I think whoever said that perhaps hasn't seen a proper textbook of mixed method research. Altaf, would you like to add?
Yeah, qualitative. As for qualitative research, I'll share you. There is an American professor who has written a lot of books on qualitative research and also on mixed method. She writes on the mixed method. She's a qualitative researcher, and she also has a YouTube channel. I'll share the link with you. So you would find, and she's since I think she's a professor of psychology or something like that. She keeps her videos very interesting, like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, like not more than 4 minutes. And it's I just stumbled upon it a few months before when a student of mine who's doing his PhD in the US, he sent me the link and he said, you do qualitative research and this would be really helpful because this is kind of an ongoing process. Like she just contributes to it all the time. She writes books. She's not a YouTuber. She's a very famous professor. I forget the name. I'll share it. So mixed method, like as I said, like COVID has given us really an insight into the way we do things. In knowledge production, it has been one of the biggest eye opener in more than 100 years. For example, virtual learning. And sharing our resources with each and every person on the planet. This has happened, and also the reason that we used to understand human emotions more and on everyday basis has become important. The science was unable to answer questions. Science was in a process of answering questions, but this idea of finality about scientific inquiry in natural sciences, not overall, was challenged day by day. I remember a journalist asking the question, as I mentioned, to the WHO representative, saying, how would we tell it to our audiences? You told us yesterday that the virus won't come back, and now you are telling it's getting fatal, and even if you are vaccinated, you will be dying, and we don't have the vaccine yet, and all these questions. And she was just at a loss answering his question, and she said, well, it's an ongoing process of inquiry and we are learning too. But people like myself and an audience and who are suffering, they won't like buy those answers. So science, natural sciences should also somehow work with us maybe. I think interdisciplinary research has become more important than ever right now, where we are doing some of that, by the way. We did that in a recent training where we invited our colleague on climate journalism, so from biosciences, and he spoke. We were just trying to mix it, and it was interesting. Zunair, I don't know. It's a continuous struggle. It's also a question of territories. Like we are also most of the time. We are also in a process of going towards a holistic approach to knowledge, the way the ancients used to do. We are thinking about that. We just decided to have boundaries with the encyclopedists, and it was good because we classified knowledge and we have focused on different areas. But I think we have reached an end to that, to a saturation point, and I think we have to really work together again. So maybe there is some solution to that. I see another question where somebody has asked to give a situation where both of the this is something that I'm doing right now. I don't know, because I can't just state examples from fields that I don't know about, but this is an ongoing project of mine. So I thought I can say that, like online trolling, for example, like is really difficult for anybody to live with, but for journalists it becomes really difficult. Like when they are trolled online, they don't have much options. They get into self-censorship, and self-censorship again hurts them a lot, because that's their job to say the truth. And it's never, we all know that journalism is never a perfect truth. It's always an ongoing process. People object when people watch news at the same time. So I will just, I have this project on which I am working, where I would like to know how is online trolling affecting journalists in the way that their work ethics as well as their mental well-being, which also includes their family relations and workplace relations and everything. So it's a pretty qualitative theme. Like it's something that where qualitative research proceeds, like it's more important. But again, if I interview 4 journalists and I say, okay, this is how they feel, it's not representative at all. And that's where, for me, most of the time, mixed methods of research really come handy, because I can develop a profile in which I can include all the, what we call, uh, the, the main questions, like about, I forget the name, independent variables. And along with it, I can put in, I'll be putting in some opinion statements, like only one question. I don't go for much, because I support my quantitative data with qualitative research. And so this will give me a profile and a bit of an understanding of how most of the people think about online trolling, which will be 1 or 2 opinion statement based questions, kind of 10 to 9 to 13 questions, which will give me an understanding of how are their views generally like. That's how far you can go qualitative in a quantitative survey. And I'll say, okay, I'll ask questions about their work ethics, one, and the second one would be their mental well-being. And then I'll choose 4 to 6 journalists who I'll be interviewing in depth. I'll be interviewing in depth in person most. I would prefer to do it in person, although it's possible on Zoom, because then you have all these non-verbal situational processes that works. As it happens, the quantitative one will go online, like, oh, I'll be sending it to friends and they'll be filling the questionnaire. I don't think that it would be possible for me to do the legwork and go into, and I always prefer to do it online instead of giving it to students and recollect those, because when you send it online, at least in an email, you get it back from the same person. So so that's something that I would be doing. So I thought it would be a good example. And also the theoretical structure would not be simply one theory, because it's dealing with a human situation which is complex. So mainly I'll be using what we call the field theory, because most of the time in journalism it works really well, because a lot changes in every day. But I think there are a couple of theories which will come together to develop paradigm, and that paradigm will be connected to the instrument, like especially the qualitative one, to answer questions. So that's an example if it serves purpose.
But if you could explain, what is the quantitative aspect of this study? Did you collect a survey of the number of trolls on a specific site, or how did you do the quantitative part of it?
No, since I'm doing my aspect is basically, since my research is mostly about professional self-conception of journalists. How do they think about themselves? And so my quantitative side would be reaching out to 300 to 400 journalists with the questionnaire and answering the questions regarding online trolling. How do they see it? How, like, there are questions. Some people think that trolling is good. It gives them prominence. Celebrities go into trolling, like they would like to get trolled if they are no more in the frame. And journalists are suffering from that, because many people think that since nobody is bothering to talk about this guy, so he or she is just, it becomes especially difficult for women. So I'll be sending questionnaires to 300 to 400 journalists, asking about how do they feel about trolling, and also what organization they work with, where is it more or less. Like if you are in English journalism, earlier in English journalism, you were safer. Like people didn't read much of English stuff. So if you were working in dawn, you were okay. But now it's not the case. With television and social media, you just get trolled anyway. So it will not be the trolling, but rather the individuals, their self-perception about trolling.
So you will probably, the quantitative data will consider the number of people, the areas they are in, the fields they belong to, their genders, and so on. And that will be the quantitative part of the data. And when you pick up a few, you will also put up some variables, or what are the triggers on which you're going to pick up your sample out of the 4 and do in-depth qualitative, research, sort of questionnaire or interviews or whatever that you choose, or observation, or whatever you choose as a method for the qualitative part, right?
Yeah, it's like my focus is on there are at times in quantitative research you ask obvious questions. At times these seem redundant. Like you ask questions to which you think that you know the answers, but you should never do that. Like,
Yeah.
do you find trolling good or not? So you give it. It's an important question. Like
Yeah.
some people might say it's no harm. So you should at least give them a chance. Jones, the one thing that I really like about mixed methods of research, since you are dealing with an emotional side of human beings, you don't look at things in black and white. You always leave a room for gray. And that's something, that's the middle part of my questionnaire, which will deal with which will just come from what we call the independent variables, where you have all these statistics about who is where and what age, and like all these education, income is also one reason some journalists are trolled, because they earn much. So, and then you say, okay, these are quantitative questions. You can get answers to that whether you find trolling good or bad. If you find it bad, how bad could it be? You can give it a Likert scale. So you have a general 300-400 people giving you an answer, which if you only focus on 4, you won't get. Like, it won't be representative, although you will be satisfied that, okay, I interviewed the best in the business or the worst in the business, and I have all the representative samples, but you don't. So I think in most of the cases right now, when we are going into humanities, social sciences, it's also important to develop a quantitative structure that is very representative, that gives you a general view of the situation, because your qualitative sample can't go that big. Like, it can't go 20, 50, 40. You can't do that.
Yeah. And I have noticed that sometimes, you find your research question first, you put up a sample, and then you sort of explore. And that is one of the methods that you explore what is the research question you will really address in your research. And so there are different ways you could mix different types of methods for different purposes as you develop your research. So you have to be very clear what is your, I don't see any other questions except that's, I think some Namal's Farah Jabeen from Namal wanted to, the book, name of the book that you
I'll share the name of the book. And
we'll send it to you.
And as I don't know, can I share this but we'll share everything. The introduction that I have used for my talk, it's good to read, and the book naturally too. But the introduction is being used in many universities in the US to explain what research is. So I'll share that one.
I thank you so much, Altaf. And I see we have still 75 interested participants. We are very thankful to you for holding out with us. We are slightly over time, which is just 8 minutes, so we did good. Thank you again, and we'll see you. I think we are seeing you again at 1 for quantitative, for I think analysis of data, And I think the question that you talked about sampling, I think is a key question in how do you pick up a representative sample for your research, and that really makes all the difference. So there were questions coming in. I think it's the various stages of the research methodology and the various steps that are involved. Everything has to be justified, valid, and has to be credible to give the answer that you want. And that is how you sort of labor or reflect every step of the way. Thank you so much. There's thanks coming in. Allah Rakhar says from Allama Iqbal Open University that may you have more successes. Thanks coming in from Narul and other places. We are very happy to sort of provide this service through our FCC experts and some more. We have Asif from LUMS, and we have Wasim Anwar from College College. We are actually very eager to refine our, so please do write to us. You're free to email us if you find that we missed out something in these sessions. We'll be happy to add them for the next time. So thank you so much.
May I just answer 2 questions that I see here?
Oh, I see there are some more coming.
Yeah, no, these are earlier, but I like, no, it's, there is this one, Anila said that it's a qualitative and quantitative research. Yes, it is. That's true. It's both of them. And it's only, there is no mixed method of research in itself. It's only the decision that, and it's also connected to the earlier question from Arfin to keep track of qualitative or quantitative steps in your mixed method research. Like the simple answer to it is that it's you, as I said, your research question, your theoretical selection of one or more theories, and connected to it is the method. So that's the initial job where you can really make optimal use of synchronizing both the methods. That's it.
Thank you so much, Altaf. We will share the recording link plus the additional materials that Altaf will share with us, and we'll email it to you within a couple of days. I hope that's okay. Please do keep on emailing us with your feedback. If there's something more you'd like to write to us about, happy to be of help to you and support you as you embark on your journey to be a researcher. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alvina, for your kindness. Bye-bye. Okay.